Hello everyone, today I'm going to be showing you how to make a stacked small slime, at least how I make them. Stacked small slimes are a variant of the small slime and they use GPIO pins to power the IMU instead of the default pins. Now, stack small slimes, you need these parts. You're going to need the IMU, of course, and as you can see here, I have put some electrical tape on the back. You do not need this, but it is an extra safety measure that it does not take much time. Then you need, of course, the battery, a wire of any kind, a button, and you would need the microcontroller board. Here is our microcontroller board. You can find where to get this on AliExpress. And as you can see, there are some included header pins. We will be using these for our IMU. You want to break off 4. Have 4, set them aside. Now, as you can see here, we have our per microboard. The sides are rather rough. These will not fit into the case very well, so I like to come over here and scrape off the sides until they're smooth. Try not to breathe this in. Now that this is all smooth, that will fit into the case much nicer. Looking at the board, we see there are 4 main pins we're going to be used. That's pin 17, pin 20, pin 22, and pin 24. These pins will be supply our power and data. Using our pins from before, we're going to flatten them out so that they are as far out as they can be, like this. And looks like I got an extra one. Let me just break that off. We only want 4. Now that we have this, we are going to set it aside for now, as we're going to focus on the button. This is the hardest part. So the button I use, I like to bend it down, and this way it will anchor into the hole a lot better. We're going to put this button onto pin 6, which is how it is defined in my firmware. I find this is the best spot for a button. Put it on the pin 6. We're going to make sure it's over the ground pin, or GND. Now that that's in, we are going to add some solder flux. Add the solder flux to the pin. Then we're going to take our soldering iron. And you can do this however you feel comfortable soldering, whatever works for you. This is what works for me. Put some solder onto the soldering iron. And apply the soldering iron to the flux onto the pin. When it's all done, you should see a nice smooth finish on there. Now this is the hardest part. On this area, you are going to need, here let me get an actual surface for this. For this area, you absolutely need some protection. I am going to use, where is it? I am going to use our wire from earlier, and we're going to use this as essentially as a guardrail. Now, we need to do this because back here, there is a little capacitor. And if your iron or solder as so much as touches that, it may ruin the board. So, with our guardrail in place, add some flux. And we're going to do the same thing that we did before, adding solder to it. Now, for whatever reason, this particular ground pin is not good. It takes up so much heat, and the solder refuses to flow onto it. So I'm going to just be here while being patient with it, not heating up too much, letting it take a break. And eventually it will flow, but it takes so much longer than on the other pins. I don't know why. And here we are. As you can see, it's a smooth finish on both ends. Maybe a little rough on the ground pin, but otherwise it's fine. Alright, now that we got that, we can move on to soldering on the IMU. So, put the pins in to cover pins 17, 20, 22, and 24. Then we're going to add flux to each of the pins, or at least the pins that we're going to be soldering for the time. I just like to apply it all at once. And we're going to solder the pins down. When you solder them down, make sure that the pin headers are leaning inwards to the board. This will be important for in a second. And solder down all the pins. This one's being difficult, but eventually you'll have them all with a smooth finish, just like before. All right. With everything soldered, as you can see, they all have nice finishes on them, securing it firmly to the board. Next, we're going to take our IMU, and we're going to line it up onto the pins. We want to line it up to the side of the board. Snip the pins. Well, better word, trim the pins, so that they're basically flush with the IMU. Now, very important, we want it to the side of the holes. On the side of the IMU, never through the holes. If it is through the holes, it is next to impossible to remove. You do not want to remove it when it goes through the holes. It is far too close to the board to do anything. With everything lined up, we're going to add some flux to those pins. Alright, we're going to solder pin 24 to SDA, pin 22 to SCL, pin 20 to ground, and pin 17 to 3v3. Alright, with that soldered, that is all we need. If you want to enable something called sleep mode, then you need to add another pin. We're going to use our wire from earlier, and we are going to add it to pin 2. Pins 1 to pin 2. As you can see, we're going to use our flux again. Add some to the wire for good measure. And solder it on. Trim the pin. And solder the pin to the IMU. Alright, with that, that is all the soldering needed for the IMU for a stacked configuration. Next, we are going to add the battery. Now, the battery is entirely subjective. I like to add it to the B+, and the ground underneath B+. B- is ground on these boards. They are the same thing. With this, we're just going to solder the battery to the board. Alright, now the battery is successfully connected to the board. With everything nice and tidy like this, we're going to get the case. And the package should just slide right in. Case light goes on. we are. Give it a plug in. Blue light means it's charging. Red light means it is active and working. It's ready for updating the bootloader and then adding firmware. Oh. Thank you all for watching. I hope this helps you with assembling your SmolSlime.